Hey guys, thanks for watching my channel. My name's Don, and my channel is all about fishing after the age of 70. Today my subject is why do I still collect fishing lures? I have people ask me that question all the time. Uh, Trust me when I say it's certainly not about the money. Some of the lures I have, yeah, they're worth a couple of bucks, but it's really more. Um, when you start collecting lures, it's really more about the value the lure itself represents. And maybe it's not even the value, maybe it's something more intrinsic. Maybe it's the ability to bring back memories, times that you've used certain lures and kind of what those lures mean to you. Um, I've been collecting lures for a long time. Most people think it's a stupid hobby, but I got other hobbies that they probably think are even dumber. I collect coins, and believe me, when I sit down, I start going through pennies. People really start shaking their head. But I like pennies. I know we aren't going to print anymore, so I feel like the pennies I have are probably valuable. They might be worth two pennies, but it's a fun hobby. I enjoy doing it, and I'll continue I'll continue collecting lures probably as long as I live. Uh, when I pick up old fishing lures, immediately they take me back to a place in time when life was a lot simpler. When I was on a particular lake, and a lot of my memories go back to fishing in Ohio back when I fished a lot of the glacier lakes, particularly Lake Erie. And they take me back to Rice Lake up in Canada where we used to go every year on vacation. But they represent some really incredible, uh, really incredible memories. Um, but I like them. I like fishing lures. I like new lures. I like old lures. There's certain lures that have more appeal than others, only because not necessarily because they're rare, but I just happen to like the way they look. I like their shape. I like the I like to fish with them because they've got an incredible action. Um, I like to use them in certain circumstances. You'd be surprised. Some of the guys that I fished with over the years, they'll see some of the tackle that I carry in my boat, and they're shocked when they see some of these lures that are from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Um, I was out, I guess it's been some time ago, but I had a couple of boys, young boys with me, and they were all about flipping and pitching, and I don't know that they'd ever done a whole lot of casting, but they were rooting around through some of the plastic boxes I had, and they came across one, uh, and it was marked Deep Divers. And they opened it up, and inside I had a couple of hellbenders, a couple of bombers, a couple of mud bugs. Those names probably don't mean anything to a lot of you, but for those of you who grew up when I did, those are some phenomenal fishing lures, and we had a lot of fun with them. I can still remember in one particular instance using a hellbender right on the edge of a big weed bed, and I caught bass after bass. I mean, they must have been stacked up under that weed bed, and that weed bed extended out. These were floating weeds; they weren't attached, so it was more like the roof on a house where the fish were just using it more or less for shade. Uh, and my I'd run that lure parallel to the weeds, and they would come out of nowhere. And I mean, it was deep water. It was probably went down about 17, 18 feet, but that lure would run deep. And I was catching smallies mixed in with largemouth. I think I even caught a muskie off one of those spots. And I always liked the coach dog. That was what they called the color. I don't think it made any difference to the fish, but it made a lot of difference to me. When I was going to fish with one, I had to have the coach dog. Uh, but those are the memories that I associate with, you know, collecting lures. And it's not just the lures that I collect, it's the fishing rods, it's the reels. Um, I don't get in and get as far off as some people do with they actually collect outboard motors and boat parts, and that's just takes up a whole lot more time than what I have, and a lot more room. But you have to admit, some of the old lures, under the circumstances, were really works of art. There's a few that I have that I really, to this day, I wonder how they could have painted them as well as they painted them, how they ever got the finish that they got. And some of them are hand carved. Now, I got to tell you, if you've ever hand carved a fishing lure, that is a challenge. And it's really a challenge that I would pose to anyone, regardless of your age. You know, to think that some of these guys used to make all the lures themselves and they used to hand carve them to get them balanced, to know exactly where to put the hooks, to make them do exactly what you wanted them to do. That's really something. I mean, that's a real work of art. You know, I made some. I probably made 30 or 40 baits myself, and you know, I've tried to do them the old-fashioned way. I've found the wood, I've hand carved them, whittled them down. Uh, Try to do it, you know, taking a few measurements, try to make sure I get both sides symmetrical. But I'll tell you, the big challenge was, you know, I happened to choose a crankbait that I was going to make, and the challenge for me was, you know, I could find the material to make the lip with, but cutting the right angle, and the angle is extremely important. If it's, you know, too far one way, it's going to run shallow. If it's too far the other way, it's going to run deep. You've got to kind of decide before you even begin what type of a crankbait are you making? A shallow runner, a deep runner? And in my case, it was more pot luck because I kind of drew some things out what I wanted to do. It's not quite what happened when I put the saw to it, but I did get it cut. I did get a lip inside inserted, and when it was all said and done, I was able to uh, waterproof, you know, the wood before I painted it, and I painted it, and I can't tell you how much fun it was to take it out and use it. It didn't run for it didn't run for shit. I mean, it was probably the worst crankbait I've ever owned, but it had such an erratic action. I kind of liked it, and the color I chose for it, you know, kind of made it look like a bluegill, maybe a malnutrition bluegill, but because it tended to run to the right and because of the erratic nature of the way it moved, you know, I thought it'd be a good fishing lure. So, you know, I made it. This was a few years ago. I made it. Took it out with me one day and went out in the springtime when the fishing was pretty good, and put it on. I thought, well, I'm just gonna give it a try, see if I can catch fish. If it's ever gonna work, it's gonna work now because you know the weather's perfect. The fish are here. They're hitting. I made about 6 or 7 casts, and I hung a fish. Now it felt like a big fish, but they all feel like big fish. So you know I'm bringing it in. Just tickled to death that a lure that I made actually caught a fish. Didn't occur to me at the time to think back to when I when I had a small pond when I lived over in Jupiter, Florida, and I had so many fish in it that I used to entertain people by cutting a little branch off of a nearby tree, tying it on my line, throwing it out, and catching a bass, or at least bringing him halfway back. No hooks, just because he was hungry. And you know, you kind of forget those things that a bass will hit almost anything. They don't care about color or anything. But I was pretty proud of the fact that a fish hit this. And I was bringing him in. I got him about halfway back to the boat, and suddenly he was gone. And I thought, boy, what a disappointment. I mean, I was just so excited. I was going to take a picture of him. It's going to be the first bass I ever caught on a lure that I made. And I reeled all the way in. And when I got the lure back, It was supposed to have two treble hooks and only had one. So, needless to say, you can figure out the problem. I didn't seat that hook very well. I used a little screw eye, and I'm not quite sure what happened. Typically, I glue it so that it stays in there. Maybe the hole was too large. Maybe the fish was too big. I guess I'll think that way. That maybe the fish was just too big and it pulled the hook out. But anyway, going back to why I still collect old lures. It's again, it's not for the money. Someday I'm gonna be long gone. Um, I don't think my wife is going to have anything to do with getting rid of them. My son will probably be the one to try to get rid of all these fishing lures. And even though I've tried to prep him ahead of time, uh, he's not one for a lot of patience. So I'm guessing he's going to dump them pretty fast. And if somebody comes along and says, "I'll give you X dollars for all of them," I'm sure he'd probably take it. Might try to negotiate, but he's never going to understand the true value isn't in dollars and cents. The true value is in the memories. And those memories are my memories. They're not his. They don't mean much to him any more than they mean something to other people. But they mean a lot to me. And that's why I'll probably continue to collect lures until the day I die. And what happens to them then, it's anybody's guess. Don't really care. But for now, I get a lot of joy out of it. It's a great hobby. If it's not something you've ever done, you might want to look into it. I think it's a fantastic hobby, and sometimes you get lucky. You find that rare fishing lure, kind of like finding a rare coin that is worth a lot of money. And if you're just doing it to make a couple of bucks, you know, you might just luck out. Anyway, glad you joined me today. It was fun to tell you this little story and explain why I collect lures, why I'll continue to collect them, and just wanted to share that with you. So if you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it if you too collect lures, or if you're interested in learning more about lure collecting. There's some great places that I can send you. Great places on the internet. There's some great videos. There's some great organizations you can belong to. We have an organization here in Florida. It's the Florida Antique Lure Collectors, and there's a national organization as well. You can become a member. They have a publication that goes out. You can learn more about it, but you've got access to the computer, so you can learn everything you want to know about fishing lures, right here on the computer. So again, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, and I hope you have a great day.